praise, the honor, and the glory go to Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh Shai, peace, safety to the hopefully elect, all the sincere Akim out there, the sincere sisters and brothers scattered, man, to the four corners. All right. And basically, that's what I'm going to go into in this lesson, this quick lesson. Show you how Israelites became Gentiles. All right. To explain when you get into the New Testament and it referred to these Gentiles and Greeks and those of other nations receiving this word is actually referring to Israelites. If you know the history and the prophecies concerning the prophecies uh, in the book of Deuteronomy and all throughout the whole Bible, man, how Israel was going to be scattered amongst these other nations. That's why when you read Revelation chapter 7, it talks about all people, kindred, nation, and tongue. Those are Israelites that were scattered amongst all people, kindred, nation, and tongue. And this is the Apocrypha, Second Maccabees chapter 4. And verse 9, it says, besides this, he promised to assign 150 more if he might have license to set him up a place for exercise and for the training up of the youth in the fashion of the heathens. And this is actually how Israel became Gentiles, man. All right. This is how they became Gentiles. All right. Being trained up in the fashion of the heathens, just like you have today here in America. All right. The Israelite youth is trained up in the ways in the fashions of the heathens. All right. So it says, and to write them of Jerusalem by name of Antiochians. All right. They call the Israelites Antiochians. All right. That's why you have the book of Ephesians. All right. The book of Romans. All right. Those at Corinth. All right. These are all Israelites that was born in these different lands, referred to themselves as the people of the land where they was actually born. But by nation, they were Israelites. Okay. It says, verse 10 says, and when the king had gathered and he had gotten into his hand the rule, he forthwith brought his own nation, his own people, his own race to Greekish fashions. And that's how a lot of Jakes adopt the Greekish fashions, man. All right. Just like today. All right. You have a race of people, all right, referred to as African Americans, but that's part of the Hellenized, all right. They call it Americanized today, but in those times they call it to be Hellenized, all right, meaning to take on or take on the Greekish fashion, okay. Basically following the ways of the other nations, man. And in this particular case, the Edomites, man. So it says, in the royal privileges granted of special favors to the Jews by the means of John, the father of Euplormus, who went ambassador to Rome for amity and aid. He took away and putting down the governments which were according to the law. He brought up new customs against the law. New customs against the law. And this is how Israel became Hellenized. All right. And that's why they referred to as Greeks and Gentiles. All right. So it says, for he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men under his subjection and made them wear a hat. Now, such was the height of Greek fashion. Such was the height of Greek fashion. Israelites adopting Greek fashions. All right. It says an increase of heathenish manners. All right, of heathenish manners. And that's why in the New Testament they was referred to as Gentiles and Greeks. These was not heathens. All right. These was Israelites. Okay. These was actual Israelites that took on the customs, all right, the traditions, all right, of the heathens, of the Greeks, all right. That's why they was referred to as Greeks, all right. Um, it says an increasing of heathenish manners throughout, through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, of a sellout Israelite, all right, that ungodly rich wench, and no high priest. All right, so you actually have Israelites selling out Israelites, no different than these boulets today. All right, you have boulets, all right, and they're set up to basically convince you to take upon the ways of the Greeks, the ways of the heathens. That's why in your colleges you have pledges when they pledge these Greek fraternities. All right, this all goes back to the Hellenization of the Israelites. All right, no different than today. They just refer to it as Americanized. All right, same thing as being Hellenized. Okay, so let's get some precepts real quick. Um, Dealing with the New Testament in the book of Romans, chapter 1, verse 16, it says, "For I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Yahushua, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth." Everyone that believeth, every Israelite that believeth. To the Jew first, which are three tribes of Israel: Benjamin, Judah, and Levi, the southern kingdom of Israel. So to the Jew first, and also to the Greek, all right, to the other 9 tribes, all right, who was Hellenized, okay, who was Hellenized into Greek customs, okay. That's why there's no difference between them, because they're Israelites, all right. So it says, Romans 10 and 12 say there is no difference. Why is there no difference? Because they're from the same nation. All right, they the same nationality of people. They all Israelites. That's why it says there's no difference. It's not talking about Edomites. All right, it's not saying that there's no difference between the southern kingdom of Israel and these particular Edomites, these Greek Edomites. Okay, it's saying, for there's no difference between the Jew, the southern kingdom, and the Greek, the northern kingdom. For the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. All right. So that's what it's actually talking about, man. All right. When you know the history, all right, the prophecies, all right, uh, about the Israelites being scattered amongst all nation, people, kindred, and tongue. All right. So this is Colossians chapter 3 and 11. It says where there is neither Greek nor Jew, whether Greek nor Jew, circumcised nor uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, bond nor free, but Yahushua is all and in all the Israelites, all the righteous Israelites, regardless if you're from the southern kingdom of northern kingdom. All right. It's referring to the Israel of God, all the righteous Israelites. All right. So that's the understanding on this. Who are the Greeks, man? All right. It's not talking about Edomites, man. Okay. It's not talking about Edomites. That's doctrines of devils, man. All right. The correct understanding of who is these Greeks, all right, in the New Testament referring to, you got to understand the history, all right, and how Israelites was basically Hellenized, man. All right. No different than the Israelites are Americanized today. All right. To adopt what? The customs of the Edomites, of the so-called Americans, man. All right. The so-called white man. Okay. The reason you celebrate these different holidays, the reason you dress the way you dress, all right, speak the language that you speak, all right, is due to being Americanized. All right. No different than those Israelites, all right, being Hellenized. Okay, it's history on that. It's plenty history on that, man. But you have these rebellious people, all right, adopting the doctrines of devils, all right, which is part of their heathenish fashions, all right? Their doctrines, all right? Their doctrines are a part of their heathenist fashion, okay? So you have these Israelites today, all right, teaching the Bible uh, based on what the heathens have taught them, man, because that's where that doctrine actually comes from, all right? It's a Jesuit doctrine, all right? It's basically Catholicism, all right? It's basically Catholicism, okay? It's talking about the Jew and the Greek. The reason it says there's no difference between those two because they're of the same nation. They're Israelites, all right? Remember, the Jew is only three tribes, okay? It's the southern kingdom, all right? And the Greeks, all right, are Israelites that's been Hellenized, okay, to follow after the Greek fashion. That's why the Apostle Paul, let's see if we can grab one last precept. Grab one last precept. Let's see. So this is First Corinthians 12, and I'll start at the top. It says, "Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I will not have you ignorant. I will not have you ignorant. Ye know that ye were Gentiles, that you were Gentiles, carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led, even as you were led." And we read the history on how Israel was led, all right, led into worshiping these dumb idols, man, okay, by sellout Israelites, all right, being paid off, okay, by these Edomites, man. The same thing they doing today, man. All these boulets that they have set up, all right, your Negro leaders, all right, the African American leaders, okay, they're set up as tools for the so-called white man, all right, to convince or influence uh, Jake, you Israelites, into following the Greekish or the heathenish customs, man. Okay. So basically, that's the point I want to bring out. I hope you brothers was edified with that. Shalom.